Which one's your favorite?
It looks like Oreos, but
Yeah.
it's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one with the feathers, and look at his head.
You like this kind?
This is plain white chicken.
Look at this one. His head's
So Wyandotte. Wyandottes are very nice to other chickens. They're really pretty though. I like the blue laced Wyandottes.
Our mom had a question about the pigs.
What's the question?
Go ahead.
She was wondering if the pig shoots up the pigs. I like that. Oh, look at the
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to show you guys how to can chicken. Chicken is one of my favorite things to can because it is a really quick, easy process. It's clean, it's not sticky like a lot of your fruits, and it's really easy to fill the jars. So we're going to go through those steps for anybody who's interested in canning chicken. The reason I'm canning chicken right now is because I just went to the store yesterday and it was only $1.88 a pound, which I haven't seen at that price for a while, and I've been waiting for it to come down again before I can some more because we went through quite a bit when it was getting higher in price. Anyways, so to start, we've got our canners.
So can I interrupt you for just a quick second?
Oh, I guess.
I was thinking something that might be fun would be if people would comment in the video to say what things they've found for sale recently, so that, I don't know, the rest of us can know about the deal and maybe go look for it. So if you can tell us what you saw on sale that you're going to preserve and where you found it, that would be amazing, so that we can kind of watch and maybe preserve some of the same things. With the food shortages that are happening, it's nice when we can find a good deal and we can preserve some things. So share that in the comments.
Awesome. Okay, so to begin with, we have our canners over here. And the nice thing is my stove's 36 inches wide, so we can fit 3 canners, so we can have 3 things going at the same time. With meat, you always have to use a pressure canner. You can never do just water baths for meat, so make sure you have the pressure canner. And then what you'll want to do is get 3 to 4 inches of water in there at the bottom. And what we like to do for ours, so that our cans don't come out like, you know how sometimes it has like a filmy, foggy look to it.
It's like hard water deposits or something on the outside of the canning jars.
And since I like my food to look pretty and not have that on it, I'll add just a little bit of vinegar to each of the canning pressure canners. So
White distilled vinegar, right?
yep, white distilled vinegar. So that's what I'm going to do now. Just add a little bit. I just edit this part, so just so you know.
And there's not like a measurement of how much to put in. We just pour a little bit into each one. I mean, you can see we just did that in 3 pressure canners, and it's still that much in the jug here, so we didn't use that much.
Yes, and I just thought of another tip. So one other tip when you're canning chicken, because it's different than a lot of things, because typically you'll be adding liquid to whatever you're canning, a hot liquid, whether it's water for your beans or if you're doing a syrup for your fruits. Typically it has hot fluid inside of it. With chicken, I don't add any fluid because it creates its own with the chicken broth. And since I'm doing that and the chicken's cold, what I'll do is I'll fill my jars and then I'll put it in the pressure canner, and then I'll turn on my canners so that the temperature gradually comes up to temperature. One thing we learned the hard way one year was when we added the cold cans directly into the boiling water of our canner, we had a few jars that broke and cracked. So anyways, helpful tip. When you're doing something cold, put it in the canner first and then let the water get heated at the same time as the food.
Yeah, because sometimes we'll boil the water in the pressure canner before we put stuff in. And yeah, so it just shattered the jar as soon as we put it in because the chicken was so cold.
Yeah. think I just said that.
I know. Saying it again.
All right, we're gonna get some prep done and then we'll start a new video. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we got all of our cans ready. I'm just gonna kind of tell you what we're doing. So since I'm doing quart jars today, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of salt to each of my jars. That just helps to make the chicken broth more flavorful. And then what we're gonna do is add the chicken to the jars. The reason I have this out on these jars is so that as I'm packing the meat into it, I'm not getting any kind of buildup on my rims of any residue from the meat or fat and stuff like that, because you'll want a really nice clean rim for your food to seal. We'll still go through with a damp rag and wipe off the seals before we put the lids on, just to make sure we're good to go. So that's what we're gonna do now. Okay, I forgot to mention one thing. If you are doing pints instead of quarts, do a half a teaspoon of salt. Also, that will affect your cooking time. With quarts, you will put it in the pressure canner for 90 minutes. With pints, you'll put it in the pressure canner for 75 minutes. Typically, I do quarts because I have a large family, but for people with smaller families or your recipes don't call for quite as much chicken for whatever you're making, pints are awesome and a great way to go too. So just wanted to throw that in there. Oh, one more thing though, if you want to, you can cube your chicken. I know some people do. I am all about what's the fastest and easiest way to get it done. So I will probably just cut my chicken breast in half to get it to fit through the lids, since I have just the regular mouth. Wide mouth is super handy. Most of my wide mouth jars are in use right now, but wide mouth is really handy when you're packing meats because you have a wider space to fit your meat in.
Mom, I got a
All right,
wild.
Kate, let's do
I
this.
got a wild sunflower. Thank you.
Oh, Grant just picked me a flower. Growing our sunflowers.
Do right
And
there.
actually, that was the wild one.
Nice, thank you. Boom.
So,
Should go get one for Reagan.
Reagan, you want one? You don't want a flower like Mom? I want one.
Show us what you want to do.
Okay, so what we're gonna do here is just trim off a little fat. You don't have to. Some people like it in their meat. I prefer to just trim it up a bit. I'm not gonna be super precise with it.
It's in your heart because you're so beautiful.
So proud of myself. Okay, so we got done packing our jars. So now we're gonna put the lids on. We're just gonna take a rag and lightly wipe the tops of all of these jars just to make sure there's nothing on there that would prevent it from sealing properly. It's kind of an important step. If you get any kind of sugar or chicken residue or anything like that as you're doing those, it will not seal. So, and personally, I still boil lids. I've heard from other people that they don't because it's not required anymore, but I just feel safer, just like my jars, having them completely sanitized before I can.
So did you tell them that you do put the canning jars in the dishwasher to run a cycle?
Yeah, I do.
Even if they're clean, we still put them in the dishwasher to kind of sanitize them before we go through this whole process.
Yep, and like I mentioned before, so this is it. We're not putting in any fluids because the chicken will make its own fluid. So super easy to can. The hard part is how long it takes in the canner. So we're doing today because it's kind of stormy outside and Dawn and I are both home from work. So
And it's cold.
we're gonna put our time to good use while we're kind of stuck at home today. Just as a side note, I like to pack it as much as I can because you want to make it worth your time and effort, but you always want to make sure you have about 1.25 inches head space in your jar that doesn't have anything there. So. Okay, so we got our jars into the canning
Canners.
canners. Yes. So what we do now is we get the lids on and we turn on the heat. We're up to pressure on this one. Once it comes up to heat where it needs to be, this thing here will pop up. This thing here on this one. So they all look a little different, but it will pop up, and that is when it will start ticking up on your dial. These two aren't up to pressure yet. Once that thing pops up, we'll put the weight on and it will bring it up to pressure. For us, we live in Idaho, so we go by elevation. Elevation-wise, where we live, we do at 13 pounds. So check your elevation where you live to see what you need to do. It raises as you get higher in elevation, lowers as you get lower in elevation. Let's see, anything else?
Why do we do 3 canners?
Because it takes so long for a chicken to process. 90 minutes for quarts, I think I mentioned that though. 90 minutes for quarts and 75 minutes for pints.
And that's at pressure. So
at pressure, yep.
So it's going to take 15 minutes probably to get up to pressure, and then another 20 or 30 minutes to get down to pressure. So you're really looking at 2.5 hours start to finish, right?
Yep. Yeah, so chicken, even though it's easy to get it going and in, it is a long time to get it completed. But worth it for so many different reasons. First of all, I work, and so does my husband, and so to have something quick and easy for our dinners is a must. Another reason is with freezer chicken, that's great, but it's not as accessible when you need it because you have to thaw it, but also it takes up space in your freezer. And I am all for anything that I can do outside of my freezers and put on a shelf, just because you never know if you'll lose power, and in the jars they won't go bad for a long time. So typically 5 years for chicken and you're still safe.
And we've left our freezer doors open or had kids do it. They get in there for ice cream, and then and then we lose food. And you know, over time it gets freezer burned too. So it's, I don't know. This is never going to get freezer burned.
No, and I did, as you saw, probably, well, I don't know, I'll speed it up so you probably didn't see. But I did put a lot of just whole chicken breasts in there, because the nice thing about this chicken is it's going to come out like so tender, and it just falls apart. So it is super easy to just stick a fork in the quart jar and just stir it up, and it shreds. It just shreds. It just falls apart. So that's the other nice thing about the chicken. I wish I could say any questions and I could answer them, but if you have questions, put them in the comments and we'll do our best to answer them.
So this one is hovering at about 14 pounds. So I went ahead and turned the heat down to try to get that to drop back down to 13. This one, I think we've found the sweet spot. It's hovering right at 13, and it's been staying there for probably 5 or 10 minutes. So with gas, which we have, with gas, once you find the sweet spot, it tends to stay there, at least for the most part. Electric stoves, I don't like to can on as much because they're really hard to find that sweet spot. You have to keep adjusting it over and over and over again to get it where you want it to stay. Be tasty.
A lot of our chickens are already sealed. They just came out of the Instapot. The pressure cooker. This one's about to come out of the pressure cooker. It's slowly dropping down from pressure. You know, you can open the lid and take them out. Once this goes back down, that lets you know the pressure's, gone back down, and it's safe to remove the lid.
Silly baby. Sock.
Pirate. Like a one-eye.